All right, to round out our Wave 1 Deluxes here, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Generations Legacy Evolution Hotshot. And yeah, not great. um, it's great that we're getting new Armada figures, but man, this one is such a disappointment. I feel like poor Hotshot in particular has had some real bad luck over the years. Like, even if you're into the sort of like chunky, gimmicky nature of the original Armada toy line, I still feel like the original Hotshot is one of the worst figures in that toy line. And then he had a truly awful, sort of infamous universe figure that was like really panely and just got in its own way. And now we've got this one, who is probably the best one, to be fair, but still, I've got a number of issues with this figure that I'll get into. But yeah, his car mode, all things considered, I think looks okay. It's a little bit like weirdly wider than it used to be, and it's kind of flattened a little bit too, and the front end is a little bit more squared off. But I'm not totally sure. That might be a bit more accurate to how he was in the show versus the old toy, but yeah, you know, it takes some getting used to, but ultimately I think it gets the point across. It doesn't really roll all that well. Like the back tires are kind of moving, but the front aren't, and that's just because they're just a little bit too tight in there, so it doesn't really roll the tires all that well, which kind of sucks, but you know, it's not the end of the world. He does come with his little engine gun, and yeah, right off the bat, this is one of the issues that I have with the figure, which was fixable, thank God, but the pegs on the little engine gun were just way too tight, because it's two pegs in here, and they're also kind of like holding the legs together a little bit. The first time I put this in there, I just could not get it out. Like I literally had to like wrap a piece of like the paper like twist ties that come in the package. I had to like get it under the engine bit and like pry it out. Now since then I have sanded down these pegs a little bit, so now it's a lot nicer where it can just, peg in real cleanly and then can pull right out. Still a little bit tight, but not too tight. But right off the bat, that was really annoying. And I don't like to have to like sand down pegs to, be able to get the weapon off of the car. So that was annoying, but at least it was fixable. Now, he does have a little mini-con port back here, and that's where I would put a Jolt.
If I had one!
But it's okay. I'm glad at the end of the day that they didn't give him a mini con, just because like how they've been doing like the Target Master guys. The Target Masters, because they're on the same tooling as the Deluxe, have been forced to be pretty simple, and I don't really think that would have done justice for the Minicon Jolt. So maybe they'll start doing Micromaster or Minicon packs again. That would be cool, even though those didn't really sell well in the War for Cybertron trilogy, just because it'd be nice to get a new version of Jolt. I actually don't have an original Jolt. I lost the one that came with my Hotshot a long time ago, and I never had the Universe version, so I just don't have a Jolt in my collection to put with him. But at least the Minicon port is there. The only Minicon, because like the spoiler section is a little bit close together, the only one that I found that I could really get on there was Makeshift, I think his name is. But it does at least, fit the port there. So you can, at least he's a helicopter. That's kind of the closest thing we've got to a Jolt there. But yeah, hopefully they'll give us some new version of Jolt down the line in some way. I don't want them to do it as a core class, because that really seems like it's pushing it in terms of, I wouldn't want to pay $10 for like a, just a little Minicon accessory. But the other thing that you can do is, because his feet fold out like this for transformation, he doesn't have the saw blade sculpted on there anymore, which is kind of stupid in my opinion, because why not? Why wouldn't they do that? But you can do, that whole gimmick from the original toy to like have the saw blades out. He just doesn't have any saw blades, so it doesn't make as much sense anymore. But yeah, car mode is okay. Really, most of my issues with him are in robot mode. But yeah, in terms of comparisons, here he is for the standard one with Kingdom Sideswipe. So you can see, pretty average sized car there, a little bit short, a little bit wide. I mean, Sideswipe's pretty wide too, but he's even a bit wider than he is. So, I think they fit in fairly well together. Here he is with the Velocitron override. And I know this is Armada Hotshot and this is a Cybertron character, but still, that's what they look like together. And then here he is. I don't have an original Hotshot like the yellow one, but I do have the red version from, what was it, Super Links? No, Power Links was Energon. I don't know, you know, the powered up one. And I don't have the engine either, or the mini. I've had this since I was a kid, but you know, you can see a lot smaller, obviously, as figures have gotten smaller throughout the years, and Armada was just kind of a big toy line in general, but that's what they look like together. But yeah, to get onto transformation, first thing you want to do is remove that engine, which even after sanding those pegs down is still kind of a pain. Then you want to take the door panels here. I just noticed this, but like the windows don't line up with like where the sculpted panel for where the door ends. That's kind of stupid, right? Like they could have just had the door go to it doesn't matter. But yeah, you just want to take the door panels and unpeg them and just fold them onto the front like this. And then you want to take the whole roof section and just wiggle it back and forth, because these yellow pieces right here peg into the back there, which can be kind of a pain. And sometimes you get one off, but not the other. And it comes off the ball joint just because it's not engineered particularly well, I would say. Yep, kind of annoying. But then, yeah, you want to separate the legs. And this was the other issue that I had, is that right off the bat, this peg, like this little like hook tab that goes into here, was so tight. Like you couldn't push it in this way. You had to like link it up like this, which makes that happen. This little, yep, this tab broke off once before and it did again. That's fun. Good, well-constructed figure here. But yeah, basically, I end up sanding down that tab so that you could actually separate it this way, because when you tried to pull it out this way, it would just inevitably make that tab break off, which it's now done again, which structurally, I don't know if that tab is even like super necessary. So it's not like that big of a problem, but you know, regardless of whether or not it needs the tab there, you don't want your figure to break while you're trying to transform it. And this was so stupid tight that was just impossible to do without breaking that tab. And, you know, the windshields are made out of clear plastic and are on these like armatures with the ball joints too. So it doesn't feel good to like have to like grab the figure and really try to pry those parts, you know, and like separate them from each other when you're, you know, having to manhandle clear plastic, even if that's not the actual piece that you're untabbing. So that I don't like. Then you unfold the legs here just like this and bring them down. The kind of a double hinge out on these armatures in here, and you want to rotate them forward, flip out the feet just like I showed before. And then these pieces here, you want to take these little yellow pieces on the inside of the roof there and just rotate them to the inside like that. And now what you're supposed to do is take these panels with the ball joints and rotate them down. And there's a little slot on the clear plastic piece that is supposed to go over this tab like this. And on this side, that works okay. It doesn't like really tab in. It's just kind of a guide for where it's supposed to sit. On this side, the ball joint section is stupid floppy loose. Like, it can't just sit there without just like falling off. So that's not good. I don't even like to keep the windshields on the back of the legs for reasons I'll talk about in a sec, but that's kind of miserable. I hate how floppy that is. So I'll have to tighten up that ball joint at some point. But again, don't want to have to do that. Then you rotate them around at the waist, rotate the arms so they're facing forward, take this entire back section here, and it'll just, these two tabs went into these two slots right here, and you just want to hinge this back for now and just kind of leave it floating there. Then take the whole chest piece, unfold it, and then you can grab the head from inside the chest, which can be a little bit annoying sometimes, but rotate that out and then close this back up. Then you want to take these spoiler sections and they just unfold on these double hinges here. And then you bring this whole section back and it'll kind of sit on the back like that. And then take the spoilers and they'll tab into these little tabs on the shoulders there, in theory. That one stays on fairly well. This one always wants to like push itself back off the tab, which again, not the end of the world, but a little bit annoying. And yeah, there we have Hotshot in his robot mode. Let me just adjust the camera here a bit before I start complaining. Because, yeah, there are a few too many things to talk about with this figure, honestly. Honestly, a lot of it is QC stuff. Like, he's got some sort of, like, messy paint on the head here. And again, with this ball joint being super dangly loose, that really does not contribute to the figure feeling good. But that could be just exclusive to my copy. Your results may vary because, you know, the QC is not all the same on every figure. But there are a number of things about this design that I just really don't like in general. I don't like that he's got this huge chunk hanging off his back and that it's like this weird hollow section too. Like the rear axle hanging out is fine because that's part of the whole gimmick. I do kind of wish that they'd taken like these parts of these panels and like folded them in or something, because having this like huge hollow chunk just hanging off on his back is really kind of ugly. Getting into the articulation a little bit here, my other huge issue is, even if this was like working as intended, I don't like that it like blocks the leg articulation. Like, I just think that this was not the solution for where to store these, because I get on the original toy they were just kind of like on the back of the arms, which was made his arms look huge and chunky, and it wouldn't really work for this kind of aesthetic. But I wish that they just found something else to do with these, or had them fold up slightly more, because you can, if you want, like, I mean, not really with this section because it's too loose, but it's too loose in either orientation. But like with this section, if the ball joint is tight enough, you can actually like get these on the side of the legs, which doesn't interfere with the knee articulation. It just looks a little worse. Like, you know, from the front, I don't think it's that bad, but from the side, to have like these huge panels just hanging off the back of the lower legs there, I think is pretty ugly. But I still think I prefer that to having him on the back, even though that looks a little cleaner, because I don't like that, like, you know, it's like, okay, his knee only goes 90, so it's not like it goes that much further. But when you do it like this, you can't even imagine that the knee could bend more than that. Whereas like this is like, okay, in theory, right? Like if he had more like joints in his legs here, then his knee could bend up more. Whereas with this, it's just like, it kind of, you know, takes away from the suspension of disbelief, because like, if he were this size and that's how his legs worked, like he couldn't bend his knees more than like 30 degrees, which is just not very good. So I don't like that. The visor on mine is a little bit loose. It's not really a huge problem since it's such a light piece, but just to, you know, just to add to the list of problems here, I wish that they had painted the circles on the front of his legs, because that's part of his design, and I think it looks a little bit unfinished without those painted there. I'm overly griping about this figure, but there's just so many things about it that feel disappointing, whereas just like, I knew that I wasn't really going to be in love with the figure because I saw the legs thing right from the beginning, but then to get a figure that I'm not really in love with having all these QC issues is a real pain. But yeah, in terms of the articulation, the head is on a swivel here. I guess might be on a ball joint, but just because of the shape of it, you're not really getting more than a swivel. You can, you know, fold this up and down. So, and this is like an issue of packing too, because the way it's packaged, it's like pressed up like this, which it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to stop like there. So it kind of stretches out the piece a little bit, which makes it a lot looser. And again, you know, it's not like too bad on mine. Like it's loose, but it's so light of a piece that it doesn't really matter, because it's not like it's just going to fall down anyway, but it's still kind of annoying. The arms here, obviously they bump into the shoulder pads at a certain point, but otherwise they can swivel around. They can hinge out to the side. It's got a bicep swivel, about 90 degrees of bend at the elbow, and his elbows are a little visually high, which is, again, not a great design choice. He's got a waist cut. Hips can go forward and back and out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel. Again, he's got, you know, notionally, he's got 90 degrees of bend at the knee if you have these panels out to the side. And then the feet can tilt down and up a very slight amount, and then they actually do peg into the front here for transformation, so you can unlock them and activate a small bit of a ankle tilt. So, and then it's kind of honestly kind of a scary connection to get back in, because that it's just going off of this like hard plastic long tab here, or long peg here, and it just doesn't really feel good to reconnect that a lot of the time. It's not always that big of an issue, but again, just add it to the list. Really, the biggest issue for me is the floppy leg panel, which I can probably fix. But yeah, so not great quality wise. He can hold his weapon here. I kind of hate when they do this with the two pegs and then you have to hold it off center, but that's not the end of the world. He looks okay. And then you can store this on his back if you want to, but again, because of like how that peg hole is and how it just like sticks off his back, it's kind of an ugly storage, but it's storage. And then the one cool thing that he does do is you can activate, I mean, it's not spring loaded anymore. It's just, you're just doing it manually, but you can get his over the head axle gun and like pull down his visor here. And I think that looks pretty cool. I wish it was like a little bit less detented because I want to like angle it up a little bit, but it always wants to sit like straight flat over his head, which is like a millimeter at most over his head. Whereas I'd want it to angle up a little bit, which you can kind of mess with, but it's still a bit annoying. But yeah, that's Blast Effects compatible. I don't have any here with me to to show that off, but trust me, which is a little weird that the wheels are asymmetrical. Like this one has more space in it than this one does, but again, whatever, not the end of the world. But yeah, no, that works pretty well. It's just I wish that, the rest of the backpack was a little bit more compressed, but what can you do? In terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe. So you can see pretty average size Deluxe there, maybe a little bit shorter than him at the head. Here he is again with Override from the Velocitron Speedia 500 collection line. So they look pretty cool together, even if they're from different points in the Unicron trilogy. And here he is again with one of the versions of the original Armada Hotshot. So it looks better than him. So, yeah, you can see what I can say. Like if you activate this, like his really sticks way up over his head. And I feel like they could have gotten that somewhere in between where it looks a little bit less ridiculous than his, like sticking way up over his head, but gives him a little bit more clearance. I don't know, but either way, that's neither here nor there. Also, like if they eventually gave us a jolt to like, pretend that he activated this, there really isn't a mini con peg on the back here. So you really couldn't peg in jolt here unless he himself had a peg. So I don't know how or if they're going to do that. But yeah, I'm not in love with this figure overall, as I'm sure you can tell. I brought on a couple of the like mini-con accessories here, and unfortunately he's a bit small to like really use them. I never had the sword, and I only have this version of the shield, not the more show accurate yellow one. But he can't really hold the gun because if you try to lift up his arm, it just runs into his shoulder panel, and then the shield is too unwieldy for him. So unfortunately, I don't think he looks really good with those, but it was worth a shot. But like I said, if they do new mini cons, they'll probably work better with him. But yeah, kind of not great overall. Honestly, like he's not the worst figure ever. He's just one of the first figures, like one of the first new figures that I've gotten in a while where I've really felt like, oh, this is bad. Like there have been figures that I'm like, okay, it's got issues, but overall I like it, like, a lot of the Stunticons, but he's the first one in a while that I've gotten where it's just like the bad outweighs the good, in my opinion. And I mean, not counting like the reissue of Beast Wars Retrax, because, he's a better figure than Retrax, but, Retrax is mostly a figure from the 90s, not really a new figure. So yeah, this is the first one in a while where I'm just like really not having a good time with it, all things considered, and that kind of sucks. But yeah, it's a shame too, because like honestly, wave one of Legacy Evolution in terms of the deluxes has been a little bit disappointing. Like Scraphook and Needle Nose are fairly solid figures, but they're the best two figures in the wave, and they're not like super exciting, either of them, in my opinion. And then Breakdown is fine. Like he's functional. He's mostly just supposed to be a leg, so it's not that exciting, but he's okay. And Hotshot I think is really bad, which is kind of a shame because the Voyagers in Legacy Evolution were real bangers, both of them. So hopefully we'll get a little bit better for wave 2 of the deluxes. But yeah, that's where I'll end my rants here. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Generations Legacy Evolution Hotshot.